everybody, I'm B. Dave Walters. I say words about things, and welcome to this exclusive look into all things Drizzt, as well as some exciting content coming your way this summer. Fans of the Forgotten Realms, Dungeons & Dragons, and Magic the Gathering will not want to miss what we have in store for you here today, because we have with us here in the studio R.A. Salvatore, the creator of the Dark Elf Drizzt Do'Urden. We also have a few other special guests who will be joining us with more exclusive content that will center around the Drow. R.A. Salvatore is a New York Times best-selling author that has sold more than 30 million books in over 14 different languages. He is known as one of the fantasy genre's most successful authors. Thank you for joining us here today, because I am a huge fan all the way back to The Crystal Shard, which came out in 1988, which I can't believe. And I just want to say, on behalf of all the fans watching, thank you, honestly, for everything you've done for the community.
It's been a wonderful journey for me, too, so you're very welcome.
Dritzt's ventures have taken him over 30 different books across graphic novels, across video games. In your opinion, what makes Drizzt such a unique hero?
See, I think unique's the wrong word, because I think there's something in Drizzt that we all have. If you think of when I started, right, it was the fantasy genre back in the 80s was mostly teenage boys, right? Well, who in high school or junior high doesn't feel out of place? How many people walk around thinking, if people just knew who I was, they'd like me a lot more than they seem to like me, right? That's just the human condition. So I think Drizzt has that. I just think that it was nice for people to find the friends. And I think what really makes Drizzt shine are the friends he finds. And buddy fantasy becomes your high school friend. And it worked. I just was writing what I wanted, you know, with the fantasy I wanted, and other people apparently wanted it too.
Yeah, absolutely. Although, you know, I guess I have to ask the question that is on everybody's minds. What can you tell us about the new book that is coming out in August?
After all these years, one of my favorite books, if not my favorite book in the Drizzt series, is Homeland still, because I got to create something completely different. And that's what I'm telling you about the new book. It's a place I want to go have some adventures.
Well, it just so happens we actually have an image of the cover, which is incredible. It is, I mean, look at it. What kind of changes can people expect to the Drow or to the Dark Elves? Are you doing something different this time?
Not changing anything, I'm expanding. Following up on the whole new understanding of what happened in Menzoberranzan. The idea that that's the only Drow culture, or the Underdark Drow cultures, isn't true.
I've been a big fan of the Drow, you know, since the Crystal Shard. Before that, back to second edition. And, you know, anytime there was a direct correlation between race and morality, it was always a problem for me. You know, that you were bad because you were born this way. What will the Starlight Elves mean to the series?
They'll certainly mean a lot to the book, the next couple of books. I don't know yet. I don't know where we're going. I don't know where I'm going on the next page most of the time. That's what makes it fun for me.
So when is the book going to be available for pre-order?
My wife's putting it up at R.A. Salvatore.
Do you know, R.A. Salvatore is the best URL I've ever heard in my life, by the way.
It's best dad joke, huh?
But you might not have heard, we actually have a surprise for you today. We have a fantastic animated short that I know you wrote, but we actually have the finished product.
The finished product?
Finished product.
All right.
To show you yet. Now, as far as I know, you haven't seen this.
Not seen the finished product. I've seen clips.
What can you tell us, for the people who have no idea what it is that I'm talking about, what is it that we are about to watch? I get a call from Wizards of the Coast, and they said, Bob, we want you to write a lullaby. And I'm like, what? So, okay. And I said, you really want me to do this? They said, yeah. And then they told me who was reading it, and I'll let people find out for themselves. And I went, oh, okay. So let's go ahead and play the piece. Here is Sleep Sound, an animated short.
Sleep quiet, my child, my little drow. Your dreams invite tranquility now. Cast in this cavern, stone walls so secure. The web holds you tight through underdark night, and guardian spiders that tickle you feel. With gossamer thread, weave our goddess's seal. The the Spider Queen's children, and so too your kin are here to remind you that you shall not sin. They show you the scourge, the snake-headed whip. They bite and they tear, until she hears your prayer. There is no such blessing to the damned up above. Those who've forsaken the Spider Queen's love. In their way lies weakness and unceasing waste. And if you would join them, then so be debased. And when Hellfire Orb looks down on your shame, your soul is burned bare. She knows you're to blame. You'll live ever running, you've no place to hide, and huddled in fear, for there is no disguise. The sun, it will burn you. The cold snow will freeze. The hopelessness tumbles you down to your knees. And when you are broken, to her you will pray, but she will not hear you. You've thrown her away. And you'll find no companions to stand in our way when we hunt you and fight you and torment for play. You've chosen the weaklings of the world up above, who speak empty words and know not Lolth's love. No, Lolth will not save you from human deceit, nor from bearded dwarves, nor elvish conceit. The Spider Queen shows us the one single way. There is only the night. There is never the day. For strength does not stretch through branch or through leaf. It bleeds from the roots that secure us beneath, deep in our hearts, wrapped tight in Lolth's web. With venom we sting, her glory we sing. So whisper your love of your matron, your mother, who teaches the way to your sisters and brother. Brother, I say, there can only be one. For if there were two, there couldn't be you. Then that silken swaddle, that tickling wreath, would instead be your death by the Spider Queen's teeth. Sleep sound in the darkness, or burn in the light alone.
Well, boom.
So that might be the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. I mean, what was that like to watch for the first time?
It made me go back to a conversation I had at a convention many, many years ago. And someone was complaining to me, you know, these books have to grow up, meaning basically they wanted more sex and more violence and all the rest of it. And I said, no, these books, the characters will change, the books won't. Because I want anyone who picks up a Drizzt book, I don't care how many years they've been reading it, I want them to remember what it felt like when they were back in high school and they picked up their first Drizzt book. That's my goal. And that just put me right back.
You're getting emotional. That's beautiful, man. Like, I'm trying to hold it in, and you're gonna make me lose it. What did you think of Benedict Cumberbatch's performance?
You tell me. That was amazing.
And it was just such a magnificent encapsulation of not Dritzt's whole story and origin up until that point, but what they all mean to each other.
Everything we talked about earlier is in that. Isn't that amazing?
It's weird. It's almost like you planned it.
I didn't plan that at all. That's Wizards of the Coast.
You know, that is the consistency of the storytelling, that everybody knows the companions and what they are to each other. So that still is ultimately your doing,
It
sir.
makes me happy.
That was awesome. Another great way to invite people into the world of Drizzt is through video games, which brings us to the incredible Dark Alliance. This game is being developed by 2 Games and published by Wizards of the Coast. Joining our conversation now to give us more exciting details about the process of bringing Salvatore's characters to life in this game is Jeff Hattem, the studio head and creative director for 2 Games. Jeff, tell us about your inspiration for this game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan. Like a lot of people, I read the books when I was a teen, and have very vivid memories of the action in my head, Drizzt dashing around with his scimitars. And that was the inspiration right there to make an action game that was based on Drizzt.
Makes sense. You were there from the beginning, so you've been a lifelong fan of Drizzt.
Yeah, read the books early on and then reread them again while working on the game. And it was fun. It was fun to revisit those books.
You know, we heard you developed this game in a really unorthodox kind of way. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. If by unorthodox you mean starting to work on the game before you have a partner, before you have any kind of agreement to work on it, we're passionate about the characters, wanted to make this game, bring the action of Drizzt and the companions to life, and we just went plowing forward.
At what point did you find out that Bob was going to collaborate with you?
Well, I reached out to Bob early on, sent him an email, got his contact through a mutual contact at Wizards of the Coast, and started exchanging, getting some insights. And Bob was very helpful with the guidance early on.
And what was that like for a fan? I mean, that had to be crazy to be like, I'm talking to Bob Salvatore.
Yeah, it was. It was pretty awe-inspiring. I mean, you grew up reading these books and the Dungeons and Dragons, the Drizzt novels. It's part of my DNA as a game creator for sure. And so it was quite impressive to work with Bob.
And Bob, what were your first impressions of Dark Alliance?
My first impressions were shock because I had no idea. I was up at Wizards of the Coast and I was up for something completely different. And then they said, Bob, these guys from this Canadian company want to say hi. And they got something for you.
Jeff, what was that like? I know you weren't expecting that, and have it be like, well, he's here, show him right now.
It was pretty nerve-wracking, but Bob was very gracious and said he liked what he saw, and that gave us the energy to continue.
What was the collaborative process of working with Took like?
You know, for me, the process was making sure that they weren't just kidding me when they said they knew the books and loved the characters. Because people will tell you that. But they actually knew the characters. And that was important to me because I just wanted to make sure that I was giving these characters over to a group of folks that I came to trust, that they understood what I wanted to accomplish in the books, and they weren't going to short circuit that, and they were going to treat the characters the way I wanted them.
How about you, Jeff, being on the other side of that? You know, no pressure. He's just telling you, I trust you to take care of my babies. What was the collaborative process like from your side?
Yeah, well, that's where I think we got some goodwill built between the two of us, where we proved that we were going to do them justice. It is this found family, right? That an unlikely group of characters that come together and together are stronger as a unit as opposed to individually.
Did you develop this storyline together?
Early on, we bounced some ideas and we worked with Bob to figure out what setting we would do. We originally wanted to set it a little earlier in the timeline, but the game is really about action, so we set it after the events of the Crystal Shard, and the Crystal Shard is now a known artifact in the Forgotten Realms, and so it's only natural that a whole bunch of baddies are going to descend upon the Dale to try and claim it for themselves.
Makes total sense. I'm surprised you didn't write that book. No. But what kind of direction did you give in terms of the characters?
It was more me asking questions than anything else to make sure that they knew what they were doing with the characters. And they did. They developed that trust with me right at the beginning.
Bob was more involved early on in the process to set the foundations for the game, and then he let us go.
But, we've talked a lot about Drizzt and the companions, but the monsters in D&D lore have been around for over 50 years and are very well known. Monsters such as frost giants and beholders. How do you make those unique and ownable on the page as well as in the game world?
Yeah, I think the key word in there is unique. You have these classes of monsters, but every monster in and of itself is unique, and every tribe is unique. And that was something that was liberating as well for us working with Wizards of the Coast, where you don't have these hard rules in D&D. D&D is a game about self-expression. It's not super strict, and it's not precious about any of the rules in D&D, and it's all about players expressing how they interpret them.
Like Jeff just talked about, that's when I know that they're not just doing some surface combat, they're throwing a bunch of good guys and bad guys against each other. Yeah. They're actually thinking through motivations, structure of their society that affects their combat. They know what they're doing.
Makes total sense. And Jeff, what can players expect with Dark Alliance that brings something completely new to the world of Drizzt?
Every playable character, the 4 companions, has over 50 moves that you can unlock in the game, and they all chain seamlessly with one another. You get it really into the flow of combat. We call it emergent combat. I'm not interested in players having to memorize complex button presses. I just want them to have the intent and flow with the combat. Feel like Drizzt, become Drizzt, basically.
So no down, forward, back, high kick?
You can try it.
I can tell you, I, for one, cannot wait to get lost in Dungeons & Dragons Dark Alliance. But that is not all. This summer, Drizzt and his companions are coming to Magic the Gathering with the new card set Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. For those of you who may not know, the Forgotten Realms is the most iconic setting in Dungeons & Dragons, and now you can explore this realm with Drizzt, Brunar, and Lolth the Spider Queen, and many other famous D&D characters while playing Magic the Gathering. To tell us more, we'll now be joined by Maris Mullally. Maris, can you tell us who you are for people who might not know you?
Hi, I'm Maris. I am the world building and narrative design manager for Magic the Gathering.
What was it like bringing these iconic characters from D&D into MTG?
Well, Dungeons & Dragons is already a cornerstone of the fantasy adventure genre, so there's always been some number of iconic kind of monster types and magic tropes from D&D that found their way into Magic the Gathering cards because Magic designers also enjoyed D&D. But to have the chance to actually intentionally build a card set from the game mechanics and also on the creative side around the iconic spells and the magic items, the monsters and the legendary characters was just a lot of fun.
That is awesome. Actually, you know what? Let's take a look at the first card in the Adventures of the Forgotten Realms, which is a goddess which is very near and dear to my heart, Lolth the Spider Queen. Can you tell us about her as a character?
As a character, Lolth, as her reputation precedes her. I don't think any of my D&D campaigns as a player have ever gone into the Underdark, but I've known about her ever since I started playing D&D, and the fear is real. But here on this card, we've got her featured as a legendary planeswalker. For players of Magic and D&D, planeswalker is very much a magic term. And one of our criteria for our planeswalkers in this card set was, have they traveled within the various planes of Dungeons & Dragons?
That makes total sense. And this is her standard frame, correct?
Yes, this is a standard frame with art done by the amazing Tyler Jacobson.
Are there any other versions of Lolth coming?
Like the Planeswalkers and other sets, there is a special borderless alternate art version of her card. Art is done by Jesper Eising, and it is equally epic.
Are there any other insider details that you can share?
Sure. Well, for fans of arachnids and fans of planeswalkers, you'll notice that the ultimate ability there in the bottom of the mechanics box has an 8 because, of course, Spider Queen. Got to be an 8.
Perfect. Gotta appease the spider goddess. Make sure you stay on our good side, right? Let's take a look now at the legendary Dwarf Warriors card, Brunar Battlehammer, also in his standard frame. This one is really incredible. What fantastic details can you call out for us here?
The art is done by Wayne Reynolds, who is another prolific Magic and Dungeons & Dragons artist. I think, for me, I started in 4th edition, so most of my rule books all had Wayne Reynolds, her art on it, and that is a lot of how I imagine my campaigns looking.
It very much brings Brunar not just to life as himself, but it very much feels like a D&D piece. But understand there is a special showcase frame.
There is. So what we do with all of our sets is the showcase has usually some fun connection to world building. The showcase cards here for these legendary characters are drawn in a way that is inspired by some of the earliest art that you'll find in very, very early Dungeons and Dragons books. Like if you were open to that early monster manual, that black and white line drawing, that is what we've got here.
It looks like you guys have knocked it out of the park, and especially now for the Elf of the Hour. Let's take a look at the Drizzt card coming up in AFR. Drizzt Do'Urden, legendary Elf Ranger.
What I want to call out about his standard frame art is you can see him leaping through the air. He's got his animal companion, Guinevere, by his side, and they are mid-encounter with a frost giant. And if you go back and you look at that Brunar card, he's battling in the mountains as well. He's also combating the frost giant. And there's a few other cards in the set that play up that feel of an adventuring party together, taking on one big foe.
The first thing that leapt out at me, no pun intended, was Guinevere. Like both how much bigger than Drizzt she is and the elevation they've both got. That is incredible. Very much like what I imagined reading the books, very much brought to life.
Yes, and she gets her own token card. So you'll notice in the mechanics, when you play it, you create a token of her.
Tell us all about his showcase version in AFR.
Well, the showcase version is similar as Brunar's with the illustration in black and white.
That is incredible. All of this is just amazing. And as a fan, I know I'm excited to dive into all things Drizzt this year. It is a great way for new fans to also jump aboard and get to know this legendary hero. Thank you so much, Maris, for joining us here. Is there anything else you want to share with us while we still got you here?
It was just a lot of fun working with our Dungeons and Dragons counterparts. Like I was saying earlier, so much of D&D takes place in the imagination of our players and dungeon masters. And so even though there's a lot of great illustrations throughout all of these rule books from over the years, working with our D&D coworkers, we realized there's a lot of visuals when you've got like a couple hundred card set. There's a lot of visuals that you don't have. So working together on that style guide to make sure this card set was true to D&D, but also gave both our team and the D&D team some visuals to play with in the future. Was really exciting.
Well, now we'll be able to bring these heroes to life for a whole new generation of fans, right? I'm sure, based on what I've seen today, it is going to be astonishing. There are so many ways for fans to rally around Drizzt and the Companion this summer, and Starlight Enclave, Dark Alliance, and Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and Dragons, Adventures in the Forgotten Realms are just a few of them. If you'd like to know more and find out all of the ways that you can support our favorite drow this summer, visit www.legendofdritz.com. There you will find links to pre-order and an opportunity to get a very cool weapon set. Don't miss it.